Okay, hello and welcome to another Capo live update. My name's Jeremy Maloney and I'm the director and producer of Capo, which is a feature film that is in development and for which we're currently financing. This is just a part of an ongoing live series. If you've tuned in before, you'll know what it's about. But if this is the first time you're watching this is a part of an ongoing series, just breaking down a bit around the behind the scenes of Capo, what's happened to date, and then also just updating day to day and week to week of what's happening with the project and what we're doing on any particular day or week. This one's just like a continuation from the last live we did, which was about what makes a good film investor generally, but then also I spoke more particularly around what makes a good investor for DeCapo. And I wanted to talk about risk because that was something we broke down last time, but in particular, just raising some of the risks that we identified really early on with DeCapo and some of the things that we have put in place or will put in place when the time is right in order to mitigate those risks. So the first one is around the financial risk, particularly around the cash flow. So something that an investor or someone looking to invest in DeCapo has typically asked is around how the funds are being allocated. So that obviously has its place as far as where it's going to be used and in terms of what period of the project. But something that's really critical, which many investors are really relieved to hear, is that none of the funds are going to be used until the project is greenlit and it's fully financed. So what that means is we're not going to be dipping into funds that we have early when it's only a proportion or a percentage of the total amount that we're going to be raising. And this just gives that extra surety to people who are investing in the project that their funds are going to be looked after and they're only going to be used when it's the safest to use it and we know we're going to be using it at the correct time. Because the reality is funds are also allocated at different timelines of the project, whether that's pre-production. Production is huge expenses, of course, and then also post-production and what goes into that time period as well. So that's something that is might seem obvious to us, but to those who are not familiar with the project is really critical to know. So we want to make people aware of that. Um, the other one is what I would describe as an execution risk, and the main area around that is to be completely blunt, which I'm aware of, is this is the first time I'm making a feature film, and on paper that can be potentially a risk, but where it's what I should say is what we're looking to do in terms of mitigating that risk. The main thing I've done and I've done today is just I've brought in expertise much better than mine. So I've consulted with people who have walked the path before, and when the time is right and we're ready to bring in those key creatives for our heads of department, I'll be doing the exact same thing. I'll be bringing in people who are experts in their own particular area of film. And I think that's an important skill of any person who has to lead a team, but especially a film director. They've got to be not a jack of all trades, but they have their own skill set as well. But they have to be aware of all the different departments, but not necessarily an expert in all those areas. So we're I'll be bringing in those people to do that. But then beyond that, I've been very fortunate in my the other professional career of mine, which is I describe as commercial filmmaking. So creating video content for corporate videos and for branding and video marketing. Um, I've had the pleasure of having access to use that skill set. Granted on a much lower scale, but you're still having to work with budgets. You're still having to deliver outcomes for clients, and I am very grateful to have that skill set because frankly, it's something that a lot of film directors don't get to experience until later in life. So I've been fortunate enough to experience it at a much lower scale. I'll admit that, yet it's something that will be translating into how we deliver and execute on DeCapo, which and it's happening today as well in the sense of uh, literally how we're thinking about the project and thinking about these risks is really important. The other one, and this relates a lot to what we're talking about when we talk about audience, and that's market risk. So again, being a relatively unknown film director in my own right, there is a market risk of how's the film going to land on an audience and land on a market. So there's a couple of things we've done around that. Again, I've talked previously in one of the streams when we're breaking down the audience is just identifying that key where it sits as a genre. So that crime, thr- that crime thriller genre is right now a very very strong a strong genre to tap into. But we've also identified a subgenre that's unique to ours, which is that classical music, especially classical music student genre, based on the main character Alexander being a pianist in training himself. So that's something we're tapping into with the way that we interact with other musical organizations, both here in Australia and then worldwide, but then also how we allocate and focus our marketing onto those areas. Now, the other thing that we're doing, and something I was really conscious of from the beginning, is bringing in known talent to the project. So we have allocated budget in order to bring in a list cast member. There's a couple of names floating around. That's something again I would be glad to talk to on another live. But that again just strips away that extra risk of an unknown market because we're bringing in someone that's known, someone that has name recognition. So it can be a case of hey, you know, it's not Brad Pitt, but it would be a case of like this is a Brad Pitt film, and a name like that carries recognition and carries a reputation that transcends whatever the merits of the film is just on its own. So film is very much around how you can get the audience there to begin with, and then word of mouth can do a lot of the work for you after you've done that activity around how you market the film. So that's the other side of it. The last thing I want to touch on is the distribution side of things. So um, it's not like a praying approach when it comes to distribution. And what I mean by that is just making the film and hoping for the best. We've already established what our strategy is for distribution, and part of that is having those early conversations with sales agents, so that we're not waiting until the end of the project to be pitching it to people, but we're already doing that with a established or I should say a completed script to be pitching that story to them, so that we've established what that is going to look like at the end. On top of that is our festival strategy. Again, like identifying what that genre is allows us to be really strategic in when we release the film into the right festivals and what that festival track is going to look like. So that is, it's something more of a timeline question, which I'll speak to on another live. But it becomes a question of when the film is set to be released, what's the best time to release it into festivals and which festivals they will be. So we'll be aligning that based on our genre and based on the timing in the year that the film would be set to complete. So yeah, just to sum up, that's essentially the thinking behind the kind of core risks we identified really early on and what we're doing to mitigate those risks. So I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for tuning in. I'll just say again, for those who might be tuning in for the first time, if you've enjoyed this and you want to learn more about it, we've done quite a few lives already. So wherever you're watching this, probably the best place is YouTube. It's easy to see the backlog there. And if you know of someone who might be interested in learning more about this project, especially if they're looking to invest in film, feel free to again send them this video, or they can tune into future videos as well. But on that note, I will say good night to you if you're in Perth, and good day to you if you're in other parts of the world. Thanks very much.